The Office of Financial Management warning of a looming budget crisis, but they are definitely playing cover for the party in power that has caused all of this. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. So the Office of Financial Management put out a letter over the weekend. And it warns basically we're heading towards potentially the worst budget crisis our state has ever seen. Doesn't that sound familiar? I feel like we're in that position every single year. And the party in power is like, what are we going to do? We have no money. We have to raise taxes. But this letter is particularly strong in its wording. So again, the director of the Office of Financial Management says in part that the state is going into what will likely be the most challenging budget any of us have yet faced in our roles. Okay, well, that doesn't sound very promising. That sounds scary. It says, to be direct, there will be significant budget shortfalls next biennium in both operating and transportation budgets. This line is interesting. Key contributing factors to our budget challenges include costs for providing essential services that are far outpacing revenue due to inflation, cuts to federal funding, population growth, ongoing economic uncertainty, and court decisions with substantial or long-term funding impacts. Okay, let's read this again so we're all on the same page. They say the Office of Financial Management, which, by the way, is supposed to be nonpartisan, okay? Key contributing factors to our budget challenges include inflation, cuts to federal funding, so Trump, population growth, ongoing economic uncertainty, and then court decisions that impact funding as well. Do you notice the one thing that's most obvious about what's happening in our state of Washington in regard to the budget is not mentioned? And what is that? It's the fact that we spend too much money. It's the fact that our budget has grown exponentially and our spending has grown exponentially. And even when you account, it's shocking to me that mentions inflation and population growth as being two of the biggest contributing factors as to why we're careening toward a fiscal cliff, when we know that budget and spending in the state of Washington have grown 3 times the rate of inflation and 9 times the rate of population growth. If this was 1-to-1, our budget was growing at inflation, our budget was growing at the rate of population growth, and we were still, facing this level of fiscal uncertainty, that's a different story. But we're outpacing inflation. We're outpacing population growth by a lot. The reason we're in this situation is we spend too damn much money. And you don't even have to take my word for it. Former Democratic Governor Christine Gregoire said this just a few days ago.
I left office with a budget of $33 billion. And the budget today is $80 billion. Yet, how we find ourselves at the end of every legislative session now is in the hole and projected to be in the hole. I would suggest to you, we don't really have an income problem. We have a spending problem.
Yeah, it's not a partisan issue. The budget has more than doubled. It's outpacing inflation. It's outpacing population growth. Gee, maybe it's because we spend money on things like laser hair removal for transgender prison inmates. And you might dismiss that as a small, drop in the bucket. And it is. It's like $4.5 million over the last 3 years. But it shows a type of spending priority. And even if, can you go back to the letter, Nicole, from the Office of Financial Management? Even in this letter, it shows that. It reflects that. The governor is committed to equity and requests that agencies be mindful and carefully consider disproportionate impacts that reductions may have. So they're focused on this idea of equity, and equity is used multiple times in here. The governor understands that very difficult decisions lay ahead, and only by working together will we get through it. I mean, this reads like a letter written by the governor to sort of let the governor off the hook, but they're looking at this through an equity lens. And you know what that means? They're not going to cut programs, the programs that most need to be cut, the programs that are feel-good programs, the programs that fund what I would consider just racist programs. Like, money for people to buy homes, start businesses based on nothing but skin pigmentation. Hundreds of millions of dollars are going to that every single year. Again, the millions of dollars that go to help with top and bottom surgery for transgender prison inmates, just to pay for it free and clear. These sorts of things are outrageous. And it's because they got this equity lens on the budget. Look, the budget, you need to just take care of the priorities. And then we've got billions of dollars coming in for the Climate Commitment Act, and they won't spend a dime of it on transportation. That money, only 11% of it is going to actually help reduce carbon emissions. You got money going to things like teaching kids to ride a bike. You know what? I want kids to learn to ride a bike, but the government doesn't need to do it. The government doesn't need to fund it. Hockey lessons for immigrant children. Cool. The government doesn't need to fund it. The government doesn't need to do it. The private sector can do that. The other thing this letter mentions is the income tax on quote unquote millionaires. And it talks about the fact that, even if it survives legal challenges and the initiative in November, that it doesn't start collecting revenue for several years. And so they said we can't really factor that revenue in. But it also kind of has this fear line. This is also the subject, this law is also the subject of a court challenge. It may also face potential ballot measures, the outcome of which could impact the state's receipt of revenue. That, to me, is almost a line setting up the eventuality that if the income tax, is shot down by the courts, or if the income tax is overturned by voters in November, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to come for who we said they're going to come to all along for more money, the middle class, the lower class. And they're going to use this sort of fear-mongering letter and, oh my gosh, the budget crisis is horrible, to just come and take more money from you, as opposed to actually taking a hard look at their spending. Governor Ferguson put out a statement about this. He said, "My team and I are working closely with our agencies regarding our budget outlook. This letter from the Office of Financial Management lays out the challenge well. There's a lot of information still to come before I propose my budget in December, including 2 caseload forecasts and 3 additional revenue forecasts. That information will give us a better sense of the scale of the challenge. That said, we know the shortfall will be significant. I'm meeting with our agencies and communicating my goals: preserve core services, protect our state's most vulnerable, don't raise taxes." Bro, you've said that 2 legislative sessions in a row that you don't want to balance the budget with new taxes. And what have you done? The first session, you passed the largest tax increase in state history into law. And the second session, you passed an unconstitutional, let's be honest, tax on income. And now you want us to believe, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, although we were never fooled. But now you want us to believe that your priority is don't raise taxes? And then he says he wants to address the structural challenges in our budget to achieve long-term financial stability and protect our AAA bond rating. Look, and that sentence freaks me out, where he says, I want to address the structural challenges in our budget. I think that goes back to the make the rich pay their fair share, and we have an upside down tax code and whatever it is. But he says, don't raise taxes. Okay, well then let's see the stuff that you're willing to cut, the cuts that you're willing to make, because you haven't shown us any willingness to cut the real nonsense programs in state government, and the reason our budget has more than doubled since Governor Christine Gregoire left office. And then as he's doing this man will not stop posting about his menopause thing. Oh, he will not stop. Last week he did this executive order on menopause, which whatever, but he's directing all these different state agencies to, take action, to have more protections for women in the workplace experiencing perimenopause and menopause. You think that's free? So you're careening towards the worst budget crisis our state has ever seen. And I swear, no less than 12 times has this man made posts celebrating his menopause executive order as we're careening towards a financial cliff. And that is just exhibit A of how the priorities of the party in power work. They can't fix the big problems. They refuse to fix the big problems. So they focus on all these nice sounding things that they hope will help them with their base as a distractionary mechanism. It's outrageous. I mean, it is going to be a nightmare, but it's a nightmare of the state's own making. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that.